We bought this home in 2017. We didn't know that it was haunted by 14 entities. It looked fabulous. It had everything you could want. 3 bedrooms, a yard. Everything was fine until the first few weeks. And it started feeling like the house itself was unwelcoming to us, as though it was trying to send us a message. Let me explain. Within 3 weeks of having moved in, the microwave died, fried. We brought in an electrician. These things happen. Okay, fine. Not a few weeks later, the dishwasher in the kitchen springs a leak, seeps into the basement, the ceiling collapses. It's a mess. It's a disaster. But that's not where it ends. The light in the laundry room. For some reason, we could only light 2 out of 3 light bulbs in our bathroom. It was absurd. Add to that our fridge dies within a year of the home purchase. The house just felt wrong. And that's just the electronics. In terms of feelings, I never felt alone in the home. I would be breastfeeding my son in his bedroom, trying to enjoy some time with him, trying to comfort him, and I would feel watched. I would feel as though, in my mind's eye, I felt as though 2 elderly people would come and would observe me as I was breastfeeding. And it felt gross. It felt like voyeurism. And I thought, oh my God, Maria, you're losing your mind. Nobody's here. And then I would go to my bedroom. And within a couple of months of being there, the bed would shake and nothing else, not a dresser, not the mirrors on the wall, not the picture frames, nothing else would shake, but the bed or the mattress on this solid wood king-size bed would shake while I was in it. It was as though the house was experiencing a 6 on the Richter scale for an earthquake, but there was no earthquake. I checked the news reports. I called my neighbors. I couldn't understand what was happening. I would try to go to bed, and my bed would shake, and I was terrified. And then there was my basement. It was probably the place in my home that I dreaded going to the most. And it, I'm even getting upset, and I get a little emotional and upset thinking about all of the dread and the fear that I was experiencing, not just for myself, but for the safety of my baby. So the basement, it got to be a little ridiculous. My husband wasn't experiencing the shaking bed. He wasn't getting an oppressive feeling. He felt just fine. He said, Mary, this is a great house. I don't know why you're complaining. It's wonderful. You're just having buyer's remorse. I'm like, no, I like a lot of things about this house, but I feel a crushing weight when I'm here. I didn't tell anybody about it. I would have this horrible feeling of fear, something crawling down my back. I felt dread, a terrible amount of dread emanating from there, and a really heavy, dense energy from the storage place where we had created a little pantry. I literally thought I was losing my mind at that point in time. This was before my spiritual awakening. I was a skeptic and I thought ghosts were a foolish thing. And my husband laughs at me because he's like, do you remember what you used to say just a couple of years ago? And here I am having a spiritual YouTube channel. It goes to show that things change. I'm experiencing the spiritual oppression in my home, and I have nobody to turn to. Everybody I know in my circle is either hyper-rational or a religious extremist, like my family, who would say, Maria, you have to bring an exorcist in the house. This is my very bad imitation of my mother's Greek accent. You have to bring exorcist in the house to bring the Holy Spirit to get rid of all the demons in the house, Maria. And having a lot of religious trauma growing up, priests and exorcisms, these are words that terrify me to this day because of my upbringing. And I didn't want to engage. I didn't want... Oh my God. My kids are home. Sorry about that. My kids just came home from school. That basement felt It felt oppressive to the point where I dreaded going. I avoided reasons to go. I would leave items on the top of the stairs and ask my husband to go bring them there because that's where he did his work. I didn't want to go. And if I did go, I had this sense of trepidation. I clenched my fists and I ran down and I ran back up as soon as I could. Even just approaching the staircase to go down, it wasn't good. Now, I'd say thankfully, but not thankfully. I wasn't the only one to notice that something was off. I hadn't mentioned my feelings or my experiences with anybody apart from my husband because, of course, who wants to be that crazy lady? And now I'm here publishing my story on the internet. Um, I, but one of the first times that my mother visited from back home, I stay up late chatting up with my mom, and she has this long pause, and she says, "Yeah, something is not good with the house." I'm like, "Well, oh, what's wrong?" I know there's a bunch of repairs we still need to do. We're planning to do them slowly over the course of the next few years. She said, "No, that's not it, Maria. I feel in my heart something is not good outside," and she's pointing to the backyard. I have bad feeling. There is angry people, angry spirits trying to come to the door, and they have like fires in their hands and they want to come in. They're very angry. Maria, you have to bring a priest. My first reaction was shock and disbelief that my mom tapped into one of the many weird feelings that I was having around the house. The second was a trigger. I was instantly triggered by the mention of bringing a priest into my home and having it blessed with holy water. And third, I felt really upset that my mother would share this with me. This is my home, right? And why would you go ahead and tell me something terrifying and supernatural like that? That is not a helpful comment. And so I dismissed it and I said, "Mother, it's nothing. I don't share your beliefs. There's nothing wrong with my backyard. It's just a little shaded. It doesn't get a lot of light. I don't appreciate those comments. Please don't repeat them. Thank you very much." But I was spooked. I really was. My husband wasn't upstairs. He was out of town on a business trip, which is why my mother had come over to help me. As we both make our way up to the bedrooms, I take my bedroom. She's in the guest bedroom just across from me, the one in which I felt that oppressive energy. I go to bed. My bed shakes. I try to ignore it, and I keep telling myself that the only reason why I continued sleeping in that bed was because I thought there must be a physical explanation. A pipe under the house, the wind blowing on it, maybe the heating system shaking things up. There had to be an explanation. I went to bed. The bed's starting to shake. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, as long as it was just my bed shaking, I didn't think it was so terrible. And I'm trying to fall asleep when all of a sudden I hear this horrible scratching screech coming from my closet, and I bolt out of my bed and I run to my mother's room and I tell her, Mom, I heard a sound in the closet. Can you please? It's just like, I'm a 33-year-old woman at that time. I am grown. I'm professionally successful. And here I am running to my mother's room like a frightened little girl. And I ask her, Mom, please, I just heard the sound. I can't sleep in there alone. Can you please come to my bedroom and sleep with me? And she does, because she's my loving mother, and she holds me and she caresses me and she comforts me until I fall asleep. Well, that was the last straw. After my mom left, I knew it was time to take action, but I didn't know what to do. I had just gone back to work. It'd been a couple of weeks after my second mat leave. We were having a social gathering at the end of the day and just sharing stories with each other. And somehow spooky stories came up, and somebody brought up their story and I shared mine. My boss at the time told me that something similar had happened to friends of hers who were very rational, professional people, not spiritual, not woo at all. And that they were aware of a death doula and shaman who helped clear spaces, and they used her services and things went really well. Her home felt great afterward, and maybe I'd want to look into it. And so I did. I didn't know what I was embarking in, but as long as it wasn't a priest, I was ready. I was desperate for help. My manager gets me her phone number, and I get in touch with this woman called Debbie Charbonneau. And I thought, okay, well, I'm really out of my depth here. I've never engaged in this in my life, haven't seen a fortune teller, don't know anything about this world, but I need help, I'm desperate. I reach out to her and she says, sure, I can come, no problem. I just need a couple of hours. I'll go through the home and help the spirits transition and move out, no problem. The day comes, I leave the key for her and I come home and the air is crisp and clean. It smells of sage and just like this electric sizzle in there. It didn't feel heavy, it just felt uplifting and fresh. It felt energized. I walk through the house, I go down to the dreaded basement, and I'm like, okay, this is good. I walk up, everything is fine. And we had set a time for a debrief call that evening, and it goes nothing like what I had expected. Debbie, first of all, is really bubbly, really wonderful, has great positive energy. And she tells me about what happened when she came home. She saged and she sensed entities, and it felt like the house was a portal for the spiritual world. There was a very dense negative energy emanating from the basement in the spot that I had sensed. I hadn't told her this at all. She said that in the basement she found a large elemental spirit, a spirit of the land, who had felt very aggrieved because this appears to have been built on sacred indigenous land, and this land spirit had a job, a protector of the land. And so when the home came, it was without its purpose. It just was festering and creating a negative energy. And then she noticed a few wandering spirits that weren't necessarily attached to my home, but that had been attracted by this very weighty negative energy. She said there was a spirit stuck in the wall in my hallway, just between the walls. That's where he decided to spend some time. Then she talked about an angry, masculine, dominant energy coming from the top room. And she noted that there was a portal between the top room and somewhere on the main floor. That energy felt very territorial, and it gave her a really hard time when she wanted to help it go into the light. This was his place, and that she had no right, and in fact, they had no right. She mentioned several others, and she talked about rehoming several of the elemental spirits and some of the fairies that were in and on the property. She did leave one nature fairy, a garden fairy, to help the land thrive. She also said that in closing, she wrapped the home in a protective spiritual bubble. She closed the portal and she consecrated the home as a home. When somebody would buy the house, the priest would come and would spray holy water, and there were many rituals, and many cultures have that. If your culture has something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. I really grappled with her account, and everything that she said had happened. I didn't believe it, but I didn't not believe it. And for years I said, okay, whether or not this is true, whether or not this actually happened, I now have psychological permission to feel okay in this home, and I feel okay. That's all I need. I don't need there to have been ghosts or no ghosts, but I needed my home to feel safe, and now it does. So thank you, Debbie. And I'm going to keep this crazy story to myself. And of course, I'm here today because it was just one of those paths along my spiritual growth path to get me more connected to life's source, and to spirit, of which we are all composed. And so if you want to learn more about my journey, or if you want to find out about some of the tools, practices that I used to get here, comment down below. Please subscribe, like, share your comments with me. This is how we get this message out to more people. Let's get rid of the shame, and let's build a community of people who understand each other or who are curious to learn more. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.